Friday morning, can't control it. Fired up and counting every minute. Hands are shaking, eyes are burning. The time has come, yeah, this is not a warning. The week was just so long, we had to let it go. Our problems disappeared, we're not tied up anymore. The weekend is here. Sunday calls, we are sick and tired of it. Up and down, can you feel it? Up and down.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Johansson Show. It's Kurt. Today, special guest as seen in Wrestle Pro and Synergy, TJ Crawford. TJ, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Let's get to talking. I'm excited.
Now, really excited. With this pandemic, wrestling's been a nightmare. However, for yourself, it's still been really productive with Wrestle Pro and Synergy still doing some shows, and I know you've been working a couple of other places here and there. How's it been for you during this pandemic? Like, obviously you'd have had that long period not working, and now here you are wrestling under these COVID restrictions. How's that been for you?
It's definitely been a challenge and something that's very different. That's something like everybody's not used to, and it's still something that everybody has to adjust to. It's not. Yeah. We haven't fully figured out the system and the method of how to do this like 100% correctly, but I think wrestling is taking steps in the right direction. But as far as like myself during the pandemic, like I try to take this as my opportunity to reinvent myself and really create not so much a larger than life personality, but something that fans can latch onto and like don't just look at me as like another wrestler guy. I'm just like I don't want to just be like another guy. I wanted to take the pandemic to really brush up my character work and my social media interactions and all that. So I think I've done a pretty good job, but it's just a start.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we've seen it with a few people where they've taken this time to try and reinvent themselves, because obviously when you're doing shows maybe every couple of weeks or every month or however frequent, it's harder just to change that persona because you've got to do it organically. Whereas I think this pandemic's helped so many people that may not have decided who they were yet or wanted to mix it up. I think it's been you've taken the best of a bad situation to try and reinvent yourself, and I think it's proven a success with like what you've been doing with especially Synergy.
Thank you. I appreciate it, especially somewhere at Synergy where Colin has kind of given me the ball and said just go run with it and see what you come up with. And man, this past year I thought we did a really good job of keeping people invested in the story we were trying to tell with myself and Kasey.
Yeah, definitely. That's been one of the highlights from Synergy, obviously over the Cruiserweight Crown title. You've both been going back and forth in the triple threats and things like that, which we'll get into. But how does it feel for you when you've got Colin and Synergy as a whole letting you like come up with the ideas and run with it and believing in your creativity and giving you that freedom?
It was super challenging at first because it was something I wasn't particularly used to, was kind of the storyline aspect and the creative aspect of everything. I've always felt that I've been very good in the ring and I can be creative in the ring. But it's like we were talking about it's the outside storytelling and it's the interaction with the fans and getting them invested. So it was really cool that Colin took the chance to give me that opportunity to kind of be creative and see what my brain would come up with. And he had some great ideas too. Me and him would go back and forth for hours on ideas on like what we could do. And I mean, I'd be a fool if I took like 100% of the credit for everything, because it's not just, it was me, it was Kasey, it was Ellis, it was Charles Mason, it was Colin, it was everybody who was involved within the entire year that put everything together. And I thought it came out, I don't think I could ask for it to come out any better than it did.
Yeah, definitely. So would you say like during this pandemic, you've potentially had, say, at least the best half year of your career so far?
I would say, I mean, in my eyes, I would say my 2020 as a whole was probably my best year, even pre-pandemic. I started off the year debuting for Beyond Wrestling for the Please Come Back show, wrestling Kris Statlander, who's someone who I've known since I started wrestling, and it was such an honor and a privilege to be in the ring with her because she's incredibly talented. and having a chance to work for Beyond Wrestling, one of the premier independent companies on the Northeast and probably in the world, to be honest with you. So it was really cool to kind of kick my year off with that, and I felt everything I was doing after that was progressively getting better and better. And then obviously pandemic hits and everything gets shut down and stopped. But I wanted to just continue the momentum I felt like I already had. I felt like I was really starting to find myself, and I didn't want the 6 months, whatever it was, off to just be like, okay, well, now I'm just going to reset and start from scratch again. It's like, no, I started getting really, really good before this pandemic started, and I'm going to be even better when I come out of it, when this pandemic comes back. So yeah, it's been, I think 2020 has probably been my best year overall in wrestling.
Oh, wow. Love that. Because obviously with 2019, you started doing a lot more. I know you came over to the UK, didn't you, to wrestle? What companies was you with? I know one was London based.
Yeah, it was it was a tour for the LDN promotion.
Yeah.
It was a 10-day tour. So we would kind of just go all around. Man, I wish I remembered all the places we went to, like off the top of my head. I'd have to like go through my phone, look at the pictures, and look at all everything where we went. But it was a really cool experience being able to wrestle. I got to wrestle in Canada, which is obviously a different country. But wrestling in the United Kingdom is really cool. That was the first time I got to like fly over somewhere to do anything, which was awesome. And the group of guys that I was with, Channing Thomas and Insanely Rude, were just like the best group of guys I could have asked for to have been on that tour with. And American Murder Society, Alex Reynolds and Steve Off as well.
Yeah. How did that tour come about for yourself?
It actually came about from, I mentioned Steve Off at Pro Wrestling Magic. We had did a 6-man tag match with the promoter for LDN. It was him and one of his guys were part of the match, and he after the show he had shot me a text and said, "Hey, I would like to talk to you about coming over to the United Kingdom to do some tour, some work with me and my promotion and do a tour in February." February wasn't available for me with school because I was still in school at the time. So we settled on I think it was the May tour that I went on, and yeah, it was really, really cool that I felt like so early on in my career I was trusted to go over to a whole different country and perform.
What did you think of the UK crowd? Was it more of the rowdy bunch, or was it more family friendly with LDN?
With LDN, it was definitely more family friendly.
Yeah.
So it was very much more. It was more show based than it was wrestling based, I would say. But like it was still like it was so much fun to interact with a crowd like that. Because when you're first starting out in wrestling, a lot of the things that you're doing is kind of working fair shows and all these little small family shows. So being able to kind of go over overseas and like kind of take it easy for 10 days and really work and have a lot of fun was awesome. And my body was thanked me for it on the flight back. So
oh, brilliant. Is coming to the UK something else that you're wanting to do then, like coming back, working some more promotions?
Absolutely. I would absolutely love to at places like Progress and WXW in Germany and ICW, Defiant Wrestling. A lot of those places, like I would love for an opportunity to come back and work more, because like I said, the first time around was a lot more more family friendly shows. I would love to get back and get the rowdy UK crowds that I see on like NXT UK and stuff like that. That's really, really fun to work in front of.
Yeah, we do. We tend to be a crazy bunch, I guess, especially with the over 18s.
Coming from Chicago and going to shows at the Allstate Arena, like the Chicago crowd. And I'm not. It's gonna sound biased because I'm from Chicago, obviously, but like there's nothing like going to a wrestling event at the Allstate Arena. Like it was so much fun growing up. So like I can imagine a UK crowd being just as rowdy, if not more rowdy.
Yeah, I think if there is as close as a comparison, I think there'd probably be the Chicago crowd, probably the Philadelphia crowd, and the UK crowd.
Yeah.
What's Well, speaking of crowds, then, what crowd's been your rowdiest where you've gone back and you're on such a high because the crowd's been so energetic and so buzzing, and where it's just like, man, this shit's cool.
Man, probably the time where I really like felt it the most was this past fall against Anthony Bowens for Wrestle Pro.
Yeah.
We were supposed to wrestle back in August. It was supposed to be the sequel to our match a year ago in 2019. I got hurt. I messed my shoulder up pretty bad, and I couldn't wrestle that month. So we got to do it in September, and we went for 30 minutes, and the crowd was absolutely electric and crazy for the entirety of 30 minutes. And like, I saw a picture, and it was probably like a week after the show, and I had sent it to Anthony, and I was like, I want you to look at this picture and tell me what you find really, really cool about this. And he couldn't really figure out what I was talking about. And if you zoom in on all the fans, there's not a single fan looking at their phone or looking away. Every single fan is looking directly at the ring, invested in what we're doing. And like, man, that made me feel awesome, because that's everything you work for as a wrestler.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in this day and age, like, especially with fans, because of social media, like I've done it before where I've gone to a show and the company specifically asked, look, do you mind live tweeting it just to try and get that buzz? And a lot of fans try and do that, but again, whilst you try and do that, it does take away from being in the ring. So I think probably now, because of whether it's looking through the camera lens on the phone or people trying to tweet about it, this modern era is probably the hardest to keep crowds engaged. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, like, being able to look at that picture and see that everybody was invested in what we were doing and 100% locked into our match, like, I couldn't have asked for anything more, except for a win. To win the match.
So, am I right in thinking it was Wrestle Pro that you first started out with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started training with Wrestle Pro. They were still PWS, Pro Wrestling Syndicate, at the time that actually, the day I started training, which will actually be coming up on January 20th, my 5-year anniversary. Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah, when I first started, I walked in and I didn't do any wrestling. All that happened was Pat Buck told us that we were no longer PWS and we were now Wrestle Pro, and these were all the reasons why. And me, being my first day, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, why are we? What's the difference between the two names? Like, I had no idea. All I wanted to do was wrestle. I didn't care if what the company was called. I didn't care what anything. I just wanted to get in a ring and wrestle.
What's it been like training under Pat Buck?
Really, really, really awesome. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better trainer. He was in the WWE developmental system for so long, and he's been trained under some of the greatest minds like Rip Rogers and Dr. Tom. So he's passed all that knowledge on to me and all the guys at the school. Whenever people ask me for a school to go to, I always recommend Creative Pro New York or Creative Pro New Jersey, because Pat is the guy who's going to teach you the basics the best. He's going to give you all the fundamentals you need to go out there and be the best performer you can. Because you look at the guys that are on TV right now, man, it's a lot of Creative Pro guys that are kind of taking over the wrestling world right now. You got the Acclaimed, you got Bear Country on AW Dark, you got VSK, you have man, I'm forgetting so many people probably, because Kris Statlander, MJF, like, all these people who are just insanely talented, that all come from this one place, and there's a reason for that, because I feel it's not cocky. I'm just confident that Wrestle Pro and Creative Pro are the best trainers around.
Oh no, brilliant! Especially, it's hard to argue with that list of names. It isn't people that have done it in the past. It's literally everybody that's hot at the moment coming through the wrestling scene, like you mentioned, with Kris Statlander, Bear Country, the Acclaimed, yourself. Everybody is like starting to take it to the next level in these past couple of years. And do you think it's going to be like Wrestle Pro's golden generation coming through then?
I wouldn't say like Wrestle Pro per se, because there is a difference between Wrestle Pro and Creative Pro. If you like look at it like that, but I guess the whole Creative Pro, like I guess this would be the golden age of Creative Pro and all the guys that are coming out of there. Yeah, I mean, and there's so many other guys that haven't even been looked at yet. You know, guys like Bobby Wayward and Sean Donovan, who were on Dark not too long ago. Like, those are guys that should be getting more recognition on TV weekly. Matt McIntosh is one of the best wrestlers, I think, in the entire world, who doesn't get as much recognition as he should. Man, Job Security, Team Espana, like, I can just name people like crazy that have come from there that are just insanely talented.
How did you end up in New Jersey then? Obviously, no secret, you're from Chicago, you've got the Bulls hat on there. So how did you end up in New Jersey to be training?
So I actually was born in New Jersey. My dad's side of the family is from New Jersey. My mom's side of the family is from Chicago. So I was born in New Jersey, and when I was 8, we had moved to Chicago, and I was there until I was 18. Went to Illinois State University for 3 months, and absolutely hated it. I hated every second of it. It was the only good part about it was that I had freedom and I was able to get drunk as much as I wanted. Like, it was great at the time, but like it like I wasn't in like the right headspace while I was there. And I definitely felt myself like kind of spiraling out of control a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember I had a big conversation with one of my best friends, Mike, and I told him, look, I don't want to do school anymore. I want to go train to be a wrestler now. Like, I don't want to wait until I'm done with school. I want to do this now. I feel this is the right time for me to do it. And I kind of went off his judgment. And if he had told me to stay in school and worry about wrestling like another time, I would have stayed in school and worried about it when I was done, because I trusted his decision that much. And he told me that he thinks the best thing for me would be to go train. And I spent about a week on the internet looking for schools and came across Wrestle Pro and realized it was only 30 minutes away from where my uncle had lived. So I knew I would have a stable living place for a little while. Anthony Bowens, who was mentioned before, his mom grew up with my dad and uncles, which I had no idea about until I started training, which was crazy. Like, he was the first person that I talked to about training. My cousin Phil was like, oh, this guy Anthony that we know is a wrestler there. Here's his number. Shoot him a text and see what the deal is. And then we find out that we have this family connection. And so I talked to my parents about it, and like, obviously insanely nervous, thinking they're going to tell me that I can't go yet. I have to wait until I'm done with school and all that. But I was very fortunate that they were insanely supportive of me going and living my dream and all that. So yeah, me and my dad hopped in the car and drove to New Jersey, dropped all my stuff off at my uncle's, and then him and my mom got on a plane, and right as I dropped him off the plane, I drove right to the school and started my first day. So
good lad. Like, it's one of those, just trust your gut instincts, I guess. I did something similar. Like, I was coaching football before, like, well, soccer as you'd call it, and I was doing that professionally over here, and then I started studying just to get some more courses, and I was like, I'm not interested. It was kind of the environment, the drinking all the time and stuff like that, and I just ended up thinking, right, I've always wanted to do this, so I quit and did what I wanted to do. And it's great that you've done that rather than wait to like finish school, and look at you now, like killing it with Synergy and Wrestle.
Look at it is, if you do what you love and the money will come.
Yeah,
I was told that at a young age, to do what you love and the money will follow. So haven't made as much money as I would like to in wrestling yet, but hopefully one day we can wrestling full-time gig.
Nah, fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. Especially with all the different like avenues there is now. You mentioned a lot of people appearing on AEW Dark. You've got NXT, and they're looking at opening more territories like they've done with the UK scene, and You've got Impact, Ring of Honor, MLW, and speaking of Impact, you've worked a couple of shows with Impact, haven't you, in the past?
Yeah, I've got a chance to do 2 of their TV tapings and a joint show with Wrestle Pro and Impact.
What was that like for you, working TV with Impact?
Doing the TV tapings was really, really cool because that was the first time that I'd ever experienced any sort of TV, like wrestling and how they go about putting a TV product together. So the first time that I went was with my old tag team, the Beach Bums, with myself and my one partner, Freddie. And it was like, man, it was really cool because it was like you have 4 minutes and you're gonna be on TV for 4 minutes, and like it's really cool that you can be able to kind of advertise like, hey, you're gonna tune into the Access TV and watch Impact Wrestling and see me. Like it was cool to like send that back home to everybody in Chicago and everybody watch it. But the second time that I got to do the Impact tapings was I got to work Josh Alexander, which was awesome. Like that was really cool because I remember it was the day of the taping. I got a text at 6 a.m. from Kevin Matthews, who is one of the guys who helps book for Wrestle Pro, and he was helping out with some producer stuff that day with Impact. And he shoots me a text, and he goes, "Hey man, not sure if you planned on coming to the tapings tonight, but I need you to get here as soon as possible. We need somebody to wrestle Josh Alexander tonight." So I immediately, 6 a.m, got right up, went right to the gym, got a nice workout in, showered, and drove right to Melrose. And I walked right in. I think the first person who said something was Petey Williams, who was like one of my wrestling heroes. And he's like, TJ Crawford, you wrestling Josh tonight? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, go upstairs, talk to Tommy Dreamer. He's gonna get like run you through the whole match. So I'm like, first off, Petey Williams just basically greeted me here.
He knows who I am.
and he knows me. And I'm being told to go talk to Tommy Dreamer, who's another one of my wrestling heroes, to go about my match. So like that was really, really cool that it was all kind of like it all happened within one day, and it wasn't planned. It wasn't anything I knew about ahead of time. And yeah, working with Josh was awesome because Josh is, I think, one of the best wrestlers right in the world right now. Like, and it's so weird. I feel like people say that about a lot of people, but like I feel like I can confidently say that after being in the ring with them.
Yeah.
And the one thing he told me was the guy that I wrestled for my first ever Explosion match didn't give a fuck about me. I'm gonna make sure that you come out of this looking like a star.
Oh, that's quality.
It was like I still keep in touch with him to this day, man, because like that was so cool that somebody who didn't need to do that for me, like wanted to give back to me because he felt that when he had his chance, it was taken away from him, and he wanted to give back. So props to Josh Alexander, man. He's just a good dude. I can't think more about him.
Like, because you do see it, like when it could be people just be bringing in for the occasional match on Impact or on any TV anyways, no matter where it is. A lot of the time, they're not getting that TV time or getting their stuff in, and it's a bit of a squash. So for somebody like Josh, and I've got to agree, like what him and Ethan have been doing as a tag team and just as a singles wrestler, I think you could put Josh in the ring with anybody in the world, no matter what style, and they're going to tear the roof off the place. So for you to go in and somebody like that saying, look, I'm going to make you look like a star, does that put more pressure on you going into it?
A little bit because you feel like that if you don't perform to the quality that they want you to perform to, then you feel like you've done them a disservice, and you feel like you've done. I hold myself to a very high standard when it comes to my matches. I want to have the best match that I can every single time I go out there, and whether it's in front of a crazy packed Melrose ballroom for an Impact taping or a no fans, no ring show. Like if I feel like if I don't put everything I have into every single performance, like what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I don't want to ever be the guy who people look at and they're like, he's just phoning it in tonight. Does not really care. Doesn't really want to be here. Like I want every time I walk through the curtain, I want people to know that I put on the best match on the show, and they got to top that.
It's a great mentality to have. Like the no fan shows then, how have you adjusted to having no fans in the audience? Because a lot of performers use them for the adrenaline. What's it been like for yourself?
It's been super, super weird because, like I said, we feed off the adrenaline of the crowd so much. And somebody like myself who struggled with that, the character aspect and the personality aspect of everything, like having a crowd behind you can kind of hide that fact that you're not as vocal or don't have as much personality as people would like. But having less fans or no fans, it's forced me to kind of to bring that personality out, because if at some point there's going to be just dead time where nobody's talking and it's just silence. So like the more vocal I could be, and the more vocal my opponent can be, and the more vocal the referee can be, like as long as there's noise happening, like that's all you need. Because then if you're making noise and you don't really notice the no crowd as much as possible.
Yeah. And I think it's a great, like, for what people have been doing, because obviously, like, the bumps feel harder as well, because, again, you don't have that adrenaline. I always remember, like, again, playing, I'll say soccer, so people understand what I'm on about. I don't play American football. And I ended up getting a real bad injury. And when I'd gone to, like, the health services here, they was like, did you play on? I was like, well, yeah. And they was like, but why didn't you come straight after the match? I was like, well, I started drinking at the pub after the game and we'd gone out. And she was like, well, it's probably just bruising then. I was like, do you not know what adrenaline does? And then then before the adrenaline's died down, the alcohol's gone in. I went, look, there's something. My foot was like a balloon. It was purple and horrible. And I'd gone to the health services again like 2 days later, and it's like, yeah, you've torn your ligaments and tendons in my ankle. And this woman's just like, it's just bruising, but again, it's that adrenaline. The adrenaline takes it. So,
The adrenaline make you feel like it's nothing, and then
yeah,
that's kind of what happened when I had my shoulder injury earlier on in the year, back in August. I didn't really notice it for like the first like hour or so after the match, and then like I'm getting ready to change and all that. I went to take my gear off, and I couldn't like put any pressure. I couldn't push with like my right arm, and I then drove all the way home. At this point, the adrenaline is like has worn off. I'm driving home. My shoulder is just throbbing in pain. And yeah, I went to the emergency room, and they're like, "I think you're fine. Like it just seems like you bruised it up a little bit." And I'm like, this thing was big. It was like a big bump. I was like, "Do you not see this? Like this looks bad." And they're like, "Here's some medicine. You should be good in a couple weeks." They were right. Luckily, like after a couple weeks, it went down and I was okay. But like still at the time, I was like, no way. There's no way this is just like a bruise. Like this thing, it looks like it's separated. This thing looks like it's messed up.
So as a wrestler, when you take an injury, what's your mindset when you then start wrestling or training and taking those bumps again? Because was you a little bit wary? Was you a bit hesitant on trying certain things in case it aggravated the injury, or did you get straight back into it?
No, I was definitely like super like very nervous to do certain things. I try not to fly around as much as I used to.
Yeah.
But like that was one thing I was really concerned about, was like, man, if I do something where I'm flipping through the air and God forbid I land awkwardly and re-injure this, or God forbid I take a bad fall and this, or I can't roll on the shoulder. So like I think the week before I got back, because my first match was that 30-minute match with Anthony Bowens after my injury.
No
My first
pressure.
match back was a 30-minute match. So like I said, we had no idea that we were scheduled to go 30 minutes until the day of the show. So like my mindset immediately is like, can my shoulder handle 30 minutes worth of this? And fortunate that I was working with Anthony, and he was able to kind of keep me protected and not aggravate anything. And he's, again, Creative Pro has a track record of just busting out crazy talent, and Anthony Bowens is one of the best talents to come out of there. So he was the perfect. I think he was the perfect person to have my first match back after an injury because he was the best person who's going to take the most care of me.
Now, it's always good when you can rely on somebody to make sure, for example, they're going to catch you properly and things like that. Like for yourself as a competitor, like when you probably see it on Twitter when people are sharing videos where people are making those dives and the guys that are supposed to catch haven't really made an attempt to catch. What's that mindset for yourself when you see stuff like that? And when, like, in contrast, when you've got people like Anthony Bowens where you can go 30 minutes coming back from an injury and know he's going to protect you.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of piss me off a bit. Like when you see these guys who they look like they're just reckless and they don't care about their opponents or anything like that, because you're getting into this and like as I'm gonna use the forbidden word, as fake as it is.
Yeah.
Like you put real risk into it, and you're trusting the person that you're wrestling with your life, because if something goes wrong, like you've seen it in the past, like people that can get seriously injured, their careers could be over, and God forbid life could be ended if something goes wrong. So it does kind of make me upset when I see guys either not necessarily like they're not taking it seriously, but they're looking at it as like, well, it's not me, so who cares? Who cares if they get hurt? You know, my biggest thing is I'd rather get hurt trying to protect somebody than them get hurt because I don't care about them.
Yeah, 100%. Taking it back to like the character stuff, then you mentioned Kevin Matthews earlier. Obviously, people may know him as KM from his time in Impact on TV. And speaking of characters, I thought his work was just fantastic. Every time I was watching him, I was just in hysterics. So when you've got people like him working for Wrestle Pro and then producing, has he helped you with any of the character work, or have you managed to train under KM at all?
A lot of what KM kind of helped people out of the school was kind of just hitting the ropes and stuff like that. That was his thing. He was the guy to go to learn how to hit the ropes. No, but Kevin is really good with the character aspects and all that, because he's very confident on the microphone. Obviously, if you've seen on Impact and stuff that he's done, he is very confident when he's on the microphone, and that's not. It's not really a character that he's playing. That's him. You know, I've like for the 5 years that I've known him, he's always been over the top, obnoxious, loud, an asshole. Like he's always been like that. You know, and it's like that's the one thing I do respect about Kevin, is that he's never shied away from who he is in that aspect. He always is under the impression like, this is me, and like if you don't like me, then like screw you, don't need you around. You know, so that's the one thing I really do like about Kevin, is that he kind of, if you don't, not like if you don't agree with him, he just he says fuck off, but like if you don't understand his personality as much, you know, I feel like you have to spend some time with him to really like understand his sense of humor and all that, because it's just at his core, man, he's a good dude who cares about all his guys, and he's helped me get so many opportunities over the years. So hats off to KM.
Brilliant. And I want to take, whilst we're on to Wrestle Pro then, you mentioned the beach bums with Freddie before, and when what happened with the trios titles? Because I know you was trios champion, the second team to hold it, and then it just became inactive.
Yeah, so I have a backstory to when the trios medallions first became a thing. Was when I was about, myself, Brody, and Freddie were about 8 months into our training, is when they were talking about doing the trios medallion tournament. And we kind of sat, we the three of us got in a group chat, and we're like, look, this is our best way to get on shows right now, because, you know, we're all still super new. They're not just going to throw us like these matches like just because we're progressing. Like we need to give them a reason to put us on shows. So we figured if we formed a 3-man team, they have no choice but to put us on a show, because they have this trios tournament coming up and they're going to need teams to fill it. And we were under the impression, man, that like we were going to do it for the tournament, and then maybe have like one more match as a team, and then that would be it. And we would go off and do our own thing. But we all had so much fun, like filming promos together and working with each other and driving together, that for what we thought was going to be like a 3-month thing turned into a 2-year run. So yeah, I cherish my time with the Beach Bums, because those were the two guys that for the first 2 years of my career kept me level-headed and kept me sane, and yeah, I love those guys, man.
So with that being like one of your first successes in wrestling, what happened to the trios division in Wrestle Pro? Why did it become inactive?
I think with the trios division, it was just kind of like there weren't really any 3-man teams. You know, I think they kind of just threw this trios medallion thing out as kind of like a special attraction type tournament. But once we had dropped the trios medallions to the Heavenly Bodies, that was when they kind of just fizzled out, and all the 3-man teams that we had were kind of splitting up into a singles guy and tag teams.
Yeah.
You know, like, so, and especially with the Beach Bums, Brody was, after we had dropped the medallions, he had gotten married and gotten a new job and all that stuff. So wrestling he was not so much at the time, not done with wrestling, but he was very much on the way out. So it was kind of just me and Freddie. So there was, you know, we weren't doing anything we wouldn't have been doing anything with the trios medallions anyway. So I think it sucks that they went away, man, because like I thought the concept was really, really cool, and I thought we could have some really, really fun matchups with the trios medallions, but yeah, it just wasn't meant to be, I guess.
But you've been having a good 2020 with Wrestle Pro. Obviously, the match you mentioned with you faced Anthony Bowens for the gold title, but then you was also in the Dream 16?
Yeah.
What was that like for you then in the tournament style? You got wins over Max Caster, Casey Navarro. Oh no, that's Richard Holiday, and then losing to Bobby Wayward.
This year's tournament was cool because I got to I made it all the way to the semifinals. Whereas last year's Dream 16 tournament, I lost in the first round to now member of the Dark Order, Alex Reynolds. So like being able to go to the semifinals was really cool. That weekend was pretty heavy for me. I had wrestled Richard Holiday in the first round of Dream 16 early in the day, and then shot right down to Synergy to defend my Cruiserweight crown against Casey Navarro. And then the next night, I went into the match with Max Caster with my knee pretty banged up. Somehow managed to win that, and then Bobby Wayward just took my knee and ripped it apart. So, but yeah, like we get through getting to wrestle 3 times in the span of 2 days is awesome. Or I should say 4 times. I got to wrestle 4 times.
So if somebody hasn't seen Wrestle Pro before, what could they expect from watching Wrestle Pro? And what couple of matches of yours for that company would you suggest they go check out?
I would say with Wrestle Pro, you're going to get a variety of kind of everything, depending on if you're looking at old footage or if you're going to come to a new show. I'd say more recently we've been on the more family-friendly kind of side of things, but there's still a lot of that independent style with a lot of the guys that wrestle there. That crazy high spot, balls to the walls, go nuts for a few minutes style. So like I think you can get a variety of everything. But now if we're going to talk about matches that I think people should check out from Wrestle Pro, I'm going to be a little biased here. I'm going to say myself versus retrosexual Anthony Green, now known as August Gray on NXT. That's a good
Just
one.
Dropping the names, aren't you?
Drop all the names that I can. Pat Buck versus Dan Moff in a barbed wire match was really, really cool. Fun story about that match. There's 4 guys who were setting up the barbed wire and getting everything set up for the match. Fun fact, it was myself, my old tag partner Brody, and Team Espana, Jose and Jose B, who got to be out there for that. So it was cool, like to sit ringside and watch a brutal match like that between my 2 trainers. So that one I believe is on the Wrestle Pro YouTube. So everyone should go out of their way to watch that. Dane Mobb versus Kris Statlander from one of the Shotgun Thursday night shows is a really, really good match. Anthony Bowens and Brian Cage tore it up a few years ago. Man, just if people just go on the Wrestle Pro YouTube page, like there's just so many good matches on there, and so many guys that people who probably don't even know of.
Yeah.
Who they definitely go check out the Wrestle Pro YouTube page and check out all these guys who they might not know and get to know them, because they're guys who I think are going to take over the wrestling world in the next few years.
Brilliant. So everybody, if that's something you're interested in, have a look in the description. I'll make sure the Wrestle Pro YouTube's in there. So just click that, have a look for all the matches, and just see what TJ's in as well. So taking it back to Synergy then, we mentioned at the beginning, you ended up becoming the Cruiserweight Crown, and you was having that back and forth with Kasey Catal, like in the triple threat matches. And how do you feel the fact that closing 2020, like you said, it's been the best year of your life, and I think that's just like the icing on the top for yourself. Talk about that whole moment when you knew you was going to become the Cruiserweight Crown, and then how it ended with Kasey in the street fight.
So when the tournament was first announced, everybody just kind of assumed that Kasey was going to be the person to walk away with the crown. It made the most sense. Her song, the opening line is legit. You should see me in a crown. So like everyone just automatically assumes that she's going to be the person to walk away with it. It seems like it's so tailor made for her, a crown to go on a woman's wrestler. Like it just seems like it fits so well with her. So when we gave him the swerve, and it was weird because when she got sick and couldn't even be in the initial triple threat match. So I think everyone's original thought was, okay, they'll put the crown on TJ, and then next show Kasey will just take the crown and everything will go back to normal, how it was supposed to be. When in reality, the plan all along was to build to that Black Friday match with myself and Kasey. And they said, we mentioned earlier on, being able to keep people invested for an entire year. I think if the pandemic hadn't happened, I don't think the story would have played out as perfectly as it did, because it gave us 6 more months of waiting, 6 more months of wanting to see Kasey win the crown, and then she doesn't. And then you have 6 more months of her trying to get the crown, and she just doesn't, and she just can't get this crown for some reason. And then she finally gets the opportunity, and she makes me tap out. And we talked about it, like some of my favorite crowds to wrestle in front of, and times that I've got through the curtain and just felt that feeling of relief that the crowd was, they made us, we were able to make them feel joy and make them happy at the end of their night. And like the pop that Kasey got when she made me tap out with the kendo stick is like, I can still like get the chills, like feeling that moment, because it was a real moment that people really wanted to see Kasey win, and they finally got to see it. Whether they knew it was coming or not, they loved every second of it.
Brilliant. And it's great to see that long-term storytelling and keeping those fans where, again, it's not predictable storytelling that you've been doing either. And how does it feel for you knowing when people are going to be looking in a couple of years' time at the list of champions in Synergy, you're the first one to hold the crown? How will that feel for you?
It's still really, really cool, because when I first started in wrestling is when Synergy was first coming around, and for some reason, man, I felt that Synergy was such a cool place when I was first starting out, and I wanted to do everything I could to get an opportunity to work there. And once I finally got the opportunity, and Colin finally gave me a chance, like I didn't think it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be like, okay, I'll come in for a show or two, and like I'll pop in here and there. I didn't think it was gonna turn into I'm a regular roster guy, and I'm on every single show, and I'm trusted enough to be the first ever cruiserweight champion, and I'm trusted enough to hold it for 6-7 months, however long I had it for. So when people look back and they see that I'm the first cruiserweight crown champion, that that's a really cool accomplishment, because I feel like the crown's going to go on some pretty heavy hitters soon.
So what's next for you in Synergy then?
I don't know. I lost my match.
What do you want? What do you want to happen? Like, what are your goals within Synergy?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say I wanted the Synergy heavyweight championship. I would have loved to have taken it off Brandon Kirk, but I'm so happy that Jordan Oliver was crown champion, because he's someone who definitely deserves that, and someone who's worked his ass off to get to where he's at. So I would love to mix it up with Jordan and get a shot at the heavyweight championship. But man, if I had one goal in Synergy right now, it would just be to make sure that the place stays relevant and stays one of the top independent companies in not only the Northeast, but in the entire wrestling world, because I feel it's definitely on its way.
I think it will. I think for Synergy being an American independent, they care about us UK fans as well, which we've seen during this pandemic. And I think the way they're so interactive with their fans, they're so trusting of the talent. Like we talked about earlier, you're getting so much creative freedom, I guess. I think with both of those, they're going to keep the talent happy, so it's going to be the place for everybody's going to want to wrestle. But because they're so I guess warming to the fans on Twitter and so interactive, and they acknowledge the fans and they show their appreciation, I think that will help Synergy really become like a fan's favorite, not just in America but all over.
Yeah, definitely. And like even the atmosphere in the locker room and the guys that Colin brings in, it's always like just a happy, positive atmosphere, and everybody wants to see everyone else succeed, and everyone it's that healthy competition in the locker room. If everybody wants to be the best in there, and everybody wants the other person to be the best they can. So it's I think it's one of my favorite locker rooms that I've ever been a part of, and I love every guy that's ever stepped foot in a Synergy locker room, because everyone who's ever stepped foot in a Synergy locker room knows that it's one of the best spots around, and everybody who's stepped foot in a Synergy locker room has given their all in the ring. So
amazing. So to wrap things up then, what's next for yourself? You've mentioned people you've mixed it up with end up in AEW, in NXT, obviously coming back to the UK. What are your immediate goals, and then what are your long-term goals? Like, is it AEW, is it NXT, or is it just traveling around the world?
Probably my biggest goal right now is to try to get to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I would love to get an opportunity to work for the New Japan Strong. Yeah. They do every Friday at the Los Angeles dojo. When I first got into wrestling, I didn't really know everything outside. So when I ventured into the world of Japanese wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling and Noah and DDT and all these places, All Japan, I just really, really fell in love with that style. And it's been, ever since I started wrestling, my ultimate goal has been to get to Japan. And I'm going to put this out there right now, and it's going to sound fucking crazy. It's going to sound absolutely insane, but I might as well put it out there now, because if I don't say it, it might not happen. But I want to be the first person to ever main event the Tokyo Dome as the junior heavyweight champion. Like that would, if I had a long-term goal, that would be the long-term goal for me. Would be, I want to hold the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship and be trusted to main event a Tokyo Dome show as the Junior Heavyweight Champion.
Dream fucking big, man. Like, go for it. Who would you want to mix it up in that main event?
I mean, I love Taji Ishimori. He's probably one of my favorite junior heavyweights right now. But I'd be an idiot if I didn't say that I wanted to mix it up with Hiromu Takahashi in the main event of a Tokyo Dome for the Junior Heavyweight Championship. Like, he's the ace of the New Japan Junior Heavyweight division, and he'd be the great person to do that with.
Definitely. And we see a lot of people get like allegiances. We've seen Will Ospreay's The Empire. Team Filthy for the LA stuff has now been recognized as a faction. So you're going into that main event. with the Junior Heavyweight Championship. What faction would, if you got to pick any of the factions, what faction are you wanting to represent, and why?
Whichever faction's giving me the most money.
I'll leave it at that one. That one's fair. That one's fair. But no, hopefully, like with the LA Dojo stuff, hopefully that can be the foundations of you going there with New Japan Strong. I think there's so many avenues, and I think, like you said, you want it enough, so go get it, man. Like, really excited to see what'll happen for you.
It's gonna be a long and hard journey to get there, but I'm ready for it.
And when you do main event Tokyo Dome, I'm gonna send this snippet, and then I'm also going to ask, so are these paying you the most money?
Which is this faction give you the most money?
Brilliant. So TJ, thanks for coming on, mate. Like, hopefully before you accomplish your dreams of Japan, you can come over here to the UK and mix it up a little bit and see you on some more of the promotions here. But where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TJC Wrestling. You can buy merchandise at prowrestlingtees.com/overtime TJ Crawford. You can check out my YouTube page, TJ Crawford. I'm gonna hopefully be putting out a lot more content coming up soon. So I got some ideas in the works. So hopefully we get some weekly content out there.
Oh, brilliant. Again, all those will be in the description, so make sure you do go support where you can. Again, TJ, thanks for coming on. We'll definitely have to do it again in the future, especially before that main event at Tokyo Dome.
100%. This is a lot of fun. I really, really like this.
Nah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So everybody, make sure you do go support TJ. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. Don't forget to check out Wrestle Pro and Synergy as well. And we've got it here. He's going to main event Tokyo Dome as a junior heavyweight champion. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Friday morning, can't control it. Fired up and counting every minute. Hands are shaking, eyes are burning. The time has come, yeah, this is not a warning. The week was just so long, we had to